In this video, we're going to be making a poison ivy pen. These pens are actually safe to touch. It's really cool. Here's a stick that's probably been drying for about 5 or 6 years, maybe 7. It's safe to touch, but to add an extra safety precaution, these have been stabilized. They've probably been drying for 5 or 6 years, but they've also been stabilized. So if there was any leftover oil, which there shouldn't be, then that would all be encapsulated in like a plastic. Here in this scrap of poison ivy, you can see the different colors that are in the grain. There's kind of like a yellow, then almost like a darkish red, and then there's yellow, and then kind of like the brown. It's really a fascinating wood. One thing I want to do before I turn it is mark these blanks on the inside of that brass tube so that whenever we press it together, the grain is going to match. Since the grain is so noticeable in poison ivy, it would be noticeable if the grain was positioned like this. You could tell it would kind of hop to the next grain. So when I line it up like this, I'm going to take one side, mark that with a Sharpie, and then do the same thing to the other side, so that whenever we're done turning this, we can reference back to that Sharpie mark and make sure the two of them line up. Whenever we put it on the lathe, I'm going to line up those marks as well. And then we put our second bushing on. Then our last bushing, then the lock nut. And I'll put on the tailstock, make sure that's a little tight on there, not too tight, and then tighten these in place as well. I converted my lathe to variable speed, and it probably only cost me about $1. I got a used treadmill from the thrift store. We took the motor out of it and reused all the electronics that were there before. We really didn't have to do anything. Obviously, eventually I'd like to make this more organized. It's just kind of a mess of wires right now. But it has a very good variable speed system with a 3/4 horsepower motor, which is great. And I've had really, really good luck with this motor so far. Let's go ahead and turn it on. So look at this grain on here. There's like a yellow stripe running through that. That's so cool. I really like it. And just the subtlety of the grain is really something to look at as well. I really like how this is looking. It looks like this yellow strip on this side and on this side. This is going to turn out really cool. Alright, so I have it turned down almost to its final shape. The next step is sanding. I'm really going to do the final shaping with sandpaper. This is going to turn out so cool. I can already see how this is going to look, and it's going to be really cool. In order to sand, we need to take out the tool rest. I'm going to start the sanding process with 180. Here's what it looks like with a 600 grit finish, and it looks really cool. I'm liking the little, yeah, that's so cool, like the different yellow streaks in it. This is amazing. Now I've got this sanded down just to that perfect finish that I really like, and now I'm going to put a lacquer finish on it. I prefer a lacquer finish on my pens rather than like a super glue or a CA glue finish. I like more of a satin finish on some of these woods. I think the CA glue really does look good on certain woods, but on certain woods I really like the lacquer. So here, wow, that grain really pops whenever you put this on. Yeah, that's so cool. This is, wow. Yeah, this is going to turn into a nice pen. Now we'll take this off, loosen up the lock washer, the lock nut, take off the tailstock. Curious to see what this grain looks like whenever we match it up. Yeah, that's cool. I use these Rockler Gold Slimline pen kits. Whenever they go on sale, they're like $2 a kit, and I really like these kits. They turn out great. So I'm going to use this kit, and I'm going to assemble it. Now I'm going to take out the clip and the little plug that goes on the back of it, and these two will slide together. These pieces slide together just like that. I'm going to grab my back barrel, and I want to find the end with the Sharpie, and I want to put that on the opposite end that I'm putting the back on, because I want those two ends with the Sharpie to match up. Now I'm going to press this together with the vise. I'm not going to go all the way. I want to make sure that clip is still loose, and I want to cover up this end right here. There's a little tear out there and there, like just a small little splinter. It's barely noticeable, but I want to try to cover that up a little bit with the clip, just because I don't really like it. Now we'll push that on the rest of the way. Same thing to the other piece of wood. We want to find the end with the Sharpie, which is this end, and make sure this is on the opposite end that we're going to put the tip on. Now let's push these pieces together. I want to make sure that goes in straight. Just like that. Now the twist mechanism pushes into the piece here. Now, this is where we got to be careful. We don't want to just push the mechanism in and forget about that Sharpie mark. What we're going to do is try to transfer that Sharpie mark up onto the ledge here, and then we'll push this in, and whenever we put the two pieces together, we'll know how to line it up. Now I've got that mark right there. It's barely noticeable, but since I know it's there, I know where to see it. Now we'll press these two pieces together. Now we want to push the twist mechanism in just until that perforation. So right there. Now we'll take the refill, screw this in place, and then we'll line up our marks. We'll take this one right here, and that one right there. Now I'm going to put this little yellow ring in. This slides on. It's pretty easy. Just do it with your hands. Sometimes it's a little harder than others. It has to have a taper on it so it doesn't come off. Okay, now we'll line up those marks we made. This is where it can get kind of tricky, so take that mark there, this mark here, and line them up like that. Now we could line up these marks we made here, but sometimes what I've found is it's just as easy to eyeball it. Find different landmarks in the wood, like these yellow strips or these kind of like little black dots. Line those up, and then we can push it together like that, and then everything is also lined up. So here is the finished product. It turned out beautiful, turning a stick like this that's pretty ugly into really a beautiful pen. So I hope you guys found this video useful. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.